Intro. Last time I did a summary of the main line of argumentation that Ted Kaczynski presented in his last book, Anti-Tech Revolution, Why and How. If you're interested, check it out. Now I'm interested in looking critically at the work. My aim here isn't to nitpick every single little thing, a lack of rigor here, an insufficient research there. I'm going after the major tenets and ideas, the core of the argument, its assumptions, and the viability of the solution of the revolution against the technological society. A quick refresher of the argument. Before going on with the critique, let's rehash the most important concepts and the flow of the argument that Kaczynski is making against the technological society and for its overthrowing. The thrust of the argument starts by introducing the concept of self-propagating systems. A self-propagating system is basically a group of people with norms, laws, patterns of behavior, institutions, etc. These systems are becoming ever more complex and more powerful due to processes analogous to natural selection. The more powerful groups prevail over the weaker ones. As time progresses, the groups are more sophisticated and have more control. Technology is being developed by these systems primarily to gain advantage over their competitors. Technology must therefore be more and more effective at extracting natural resources so that the groups have material advantages over their rivals. Any self-propagating system that focuses on short-term gains, disregarding consequences in the long run, will have an edge over its opponents who use less efficient or more sustainable techniques. Hence, most groups are strictly directed at short-term goals that bring them wins now rather than later. Current mass extinction is unique because it's driven by technologically advanced self-propagating systems that will use and abuse every opportunity and every niche to get ahead. These systems, even though they are comprised of groups of people, are beyond human control. People are unaware of the norms and patterns that organizations influence them with. In conclusion, total environmental collapse and extinction of complex life is inevitable as long as the technological society that enables it to happen is allowed to continue. The technological society has to be destroyed. The safe level of technology. Alright, so we have the source of the problem and the solution to it already identified. Let's run a thought experiment, and in it, let's get rid of the technological advancements. But wait, what exactly is it that we have to destroy? What level of technology is the cutoff point? Actually, Kaczynski at least tries to hint in the direction of this question. Killing of the technological society could be accomplished by destroying its major functions. Transportation and communication facilities, computer systems, electrical power grids. This, however, is presented only in a note, note 160 on page 133. Yes, just a note. So instead of giving a clear and precise layer of technology that should be eliminated, we are left only with a statement that crippling major functions should be enough. According to Kaczynski, this would shatter global systems, multinational corporations and organizations, into local ones, thus preventing them from continuing with global destruction. However, destroying even most of these systems would at most accomplish two things. First, it would slow down the Goliath, but leave him with time to recuperate. Second, unite nations or groups of nations in an effort to rebuild what was lost, to build societies anew. It would not accomplish the elimination of the means of reintroducing the damaged systems into the society, nor would it by itself convince people that the resulting state in which they now find themselves is beneficial and worth preserving. On the contrary, it is all too easy to imagine people coming up with innovations, some not even existing today, that would restart the industrial engine and put the technological society back on track of ecological destruction. There just seems to be no obvious bounds to technological innovation that we could seriously rely on in going through the present thought experiment to success. Kaczynski writes that a major blow to the technological system would make it impossible to revert back to current state for a few hundreds of years. Maybe, but is it all we can do? Assemble, prepare and go through great lengths only to get back to square one in a geological blink of an eye? Is it even worth it? After the revolution. Okay, we see that agreeing on what level of technology can be considered safe is a difficult problem, but let's continue with the experiment and say that major technological advancements are no longer viable. No working cars, little to no functioning electronic devices, no heavy machinery to drill for oil and gas or deep in the rocks for minerals and metals, no long-range communication systems, certainly no computers. But what then? As the provocative Slovenian philosopher Slavoj Žižek says about revolutions, the problem with revolutions is not just to make it happen. The real problem is to ask yourself what to do after the current system is brought down. After the French Revolution, Napoleon came to power and established an authoritarian rule. After Bolsheviks with Lenin overthrew the Tsarist regime, they created a new system that very soon became very far from being comfortable for millions of people engulfed by the expanding Soviet Union. It happens that sometimes one evil is replaced by another one. How could societies find themselves in this new post-technological world? Today, technology gives jobs, creates things, is the things we use, allows us to communicate in unprecedented ways. Moreover, we use technology to stay safe, warm, to grow food, to deliver food and water to people, to stay relatively healthy. After all that is gone, the memories of the lost world will be evoked by any electronic carcass or a plastic scrap with which the humanity will have to live for the foreseeable future. There won't be many sighs of relief, but that of longing for what once was. Approximately 8 billion people left in the world, many of whom completely incapable of adapting to the new circumstances. 8 billion people who aren't able to feed themselves in any primitive way resembling hunter-gatherer tribes. There simply isn't enough animals to kill each year, and the animals don't live in anything approaching an even distribution on land. Agriculture is the only solution, and it's easy on a small scale. But it won't be easy on massive scales without proper technology to plow the soil or transport or process the food. Less advanced technology means less land to grow crops. Today we can grow food on more types of land because of the use of artificial fertilizers and herbicides and pesticides. Without them, the arable land shrinks. Famines will take a lot of people soon after the collapse of the technological society. After the famine, disease will come for the survivors. Yes, modern medicine gave us antibiotics, vaccines, antibacterial drugs, various medications, and other such benefits. They will be gone. The means to make them will be gone too. The people, still high in numbers, will live close to each other in densely populated areas. Diseases will cut through them like wildfire, consuming dry forests. Whole populations will be disappearing. The fights for food, water, land, leftover medicine and the like between groups of people will leave people with little rest. So I repeat my question, how should humanity find itself after the collapse of the civilization? The smarts. Now, that was a grim scenario, wasn't it? So maybe something more positive this time, or at least something that starts on a positive note. We define Homo sapiens by its unique capabilities to think. abstract thinking with logic and mathematics, analytical thinking that carefully scrutinizes problems and finds solutions, artistic thinking from which spring great works of art, and creative thinking that brings to the world new forms, new things, new innovations, new ideas. As a species, humans think, and the results of this thinking inevitably lead to the creation of technology. Before petroleum and natural gas were known and tamed, nobody suspected that such concentrations of energy will be possible and ready to use. What will people in the new world come up with? They will certainly be able to get some energy from water mills, wind turbines, maybe solar and thermal energy in some places. What else will they innovate into the world? How quickly? The progress of technology leading up to the Industrial Revolution was relatively slow. We can speculate on the causes and their mutual interactions. One of the greatest inventions was printing press that allowed for the distribution of information on a mass scale. This, in turn, led to literacy being more and more common, with many more people being exposed to wide and deep swaths of knowledge. Simultaneously, the number of people was increasing. The more people there are in general, the more smart people there are. We already have all this. Lots of knowledge in books, lots of smart people, particularly trained, such as scientists, engineers, teachers, construction workers, mechanics, etc. After the collapse of the civilization, jump-starting the technological system anew will be just a matter of time. It should be relatively easy. It may happen simultaneously in various parts of the disconnected world. There will be books, some instruments and machines, plastics, scraps of metals, and people with know-how and a lot of motivation to use these resources to get ahead. Machines will be constructed, factories built, ships will sail, and the forests will burn to provide power for this civilization. Natural habitats will continue to be replaced by exploitative farms. In this scenario, technology is inevitable. How much technology is needed to ravage the planet? We would have to modify the scenario of the post-technological world to make it even less prone to use the old technology. Virtually all electronic devices would have to be rendered completely broken, oil and gas unavailable, most fresh precious metals inaccessible from deep within the mountains. Would it be enough? I have my doubts. Again, how much technology is needed to ravage the planet? Iceland was once an island with an abundance of forests with trees of various kinds housing animal and plant life. Since a few hundreds of years that is no longer the case. Forests are a scarcity. No advanced industry changed the environment so dramatically. All it took was people who needed timber to build houses and ships. Timber used to keep them warm during the winter. People who cut down forests to clean the land for pasture for their animals. Easter Island also wasn't technologically advanced. The people there lived steady life, but with a preoccupation to erect big stone statues. Moving the stones was done by sliding them on tree trunks, lots and lots of tree trunks. This spiraled out of control. Without the trees, the entire ecosystem started to die. Birds and forest-dwelling animals disappeared. Soil erosion made it impossible to grow enough crops. The people doomed themselves and the island with much less technology and less knowledge to make technology than the people after the collapse of our modern civilization would have. Again, ecological collapse doesn't require industrial-level technology. Just as we cannot predict and control the development of our current societies, we cannot say that after the collapse the people on this planet will live in a sustainable way. It would be an injection of hopium to think otherwise, especially without laying out a draft of a structure and dynamics of post-technological societies. Transition to the post-technological civilization. Now I would like to step back a bit and look at the transition period from the old world to the new one. It is certain that the turmoil resulting from the overthrow of the technological system will unleash upon the world many monsters: war, suffering, confusion, despair, hunger, disease, death. Today we have around 449 active nuclear power plants, more than 200 planned or already under construction. There are over 13,000 nuclear warheads, with a possibility of this number increasing in the future. We have numerous storage facilities of poisonous chemicals around the world. How can we contain the deadly risk of these weapons firing, reactors collapsing and leaking radiation for hundreds or thousands of years, and chemicals poisoning water, soil, air, and living beings? Millions of people around the world rely on medicine to live, including technological systems in hospitals. What can we do about them? Billions of people could be fed today due to the use of technology in agriculture. Most people today don't grow enough, if at all, of the food to survive. Food production is limited to certain areas with less dense populations. What can be done to change this system to one that would work for, at the very least, majority of the people without using technology of today? These are just examples of critical points of the current civilization. The question is, what is the plan to switch the civilization to a sustainable, technologically impoverished, yet functional civilization? The startling disregard of this problem by Kaczynski is baffling. Merely saying that a revolution is needed is simply not enough. There are major issues that need to be dealt with. Maybe the points mentioned now with regard to the transition period and the points from the questioning of the post-technological world suggest that we should face the fact that saving life will cost us many terrors. It may be so. Still, Kaczynski's silence on these matters doesn't put his strategy on the top shelf. The diagnosis. This brings us directly to the most important part: the diagnosis and the cure. Kaczynski identified the fundamental force that pushes the world to annihilation, the technological system. This system constantly grows, and it creates new means of exploiting the planet's resources, destroying natural habitats and life within them. The solution is therefore simple: collapse the system itself, and the grinding machine will be brought to a halt. But this may be a mistake. As I've been trying to show throughout this entire piece, we cannot predict how the post-technological society will use land's resources, forests, water, soil, and how its technological rebirth would look like. We know that people are and will be capable of technological innovation. Most major technological innovations were unimaginable before they happened. We have a precedent to believe that after the collapse, people will start creating technology that we today cannot even dream of. And with this, the destruction of the environment will resume. Technology is not the source of the problem. People are. As long as people are present on this planet, life itself is in danger. This is the diagnosis that one can state after seeing the failures in Kaczynski's take on the subject. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention.